Earlier, I spoke with Senator Bob Menendez, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who was in that meeting with the president. Senator Menendez, you heard Speaker Pelosi say that the president had a quote, meltdown, her words. Majority Leader Schumer said he was very nasty, his word. You yourself tweeted that listening to the president made you feel deeply concerned for the country. Can you talk about what happened in the meeting, what you saw?
Well, from the moment the president came in, I would describe him as belligerent. He smacked down a series of files on the table and said, well, you all asked for this meeting. I reluctantly gave it to you. And Speaker Pelosi said, well, with all due respect, Mr. President, we didn't ask for a meeting with you. We asked for a briefing from the Secretaries of Defense, State, and Intelligence to understand the consequences of the actions you took. And then he said, well, then let's end the meeting. And she said, well, while I'm here as a speaker, I have an obligation to tell you that the House just voted 350 some odd to, I forget exactly what the amount was, but it was an overwhelming bipartisan vote to disapprove the actions that you took in Syria. And then he got that devolved into, that's nothing but a hit job on the Republicans. And she said, well, many Republicans joined us. And then he called Speaker Pelosi a third-rate politician. He said that the Kurds were nothing but communists, and all of us Democrats who were seated there must be happy with that, suggesting that we all subscribe to that view of being communists. And then, it was belligerent. And something I have never seen in 27 years here in Congress and serving under 4 different presidents. I've never seen a moment like this.
That's not how these meetings usually go?
No. Well, not with other presidents. And I've had presidents from Clinton to Bush to Obama and now Trump. I was in the White House with President Bush when he was president. We might have disagreements, but one, it was never disagreeable, and always it was respectful, and there was exchanges of views. As I said to the president when I stayed after the speaker left and several others left, I said, Mr. President, everybody here loves country. Nobody here loves it more than another. But we can have a disagreement, as is evidenced by the fact that the House overwhelmingly with Republicans voted to disagree with you. You're the commander-in-chief, but I disagree with what you did. And here's what I'm concerned about, the consequences, the reconstituting of ISIS. I said, I don't know if the military people tell you, but there are, your Inspector General at the Department of Defense says there's still 14,000 to 18,000 ISIS fighters in Syria. If the 10,000 have been detained, get unleashed, and are freed, you're talking about a potential fighting force of up to 30,000. That's a clear and present danger to the United States. You've opened up a land bridge for Iran to bring serious weaponry and to potentially attack our ally, the State of Israel. That's a huge risk. At the end of the day, you've changed the political dynamics of the region with just one stroke. I said, and your sanctions on Turkey have been absolutely nothing. The Turkish stock market went up the next day. This is this.
How did he respond to that?
He basically started saying that, number one, we can destroy Turkey's economy, but you don't want to drive Turkey into the Russians, which, of course, Turkey has already been with the Russians. They've been buying the S-400 from the Russians, which is sanctionable under U.S. law. He's also
just given Russia a huge victory in Syria. They've been supporting and propping up the regime, as well as Iran, to the point you made earlier.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the big winners, as I suggested to them, the big winners are Iran, Russia, and even Turkey in this regard. And so this letter that he handed out to all of us at the beginning, which if he hadn't handed it out himself, I would have thought was not a real letter, but basically...
This is the letter he wrote to Erdogan in Turkey.
This is the letter he wrote to Erdogan in Turkey, which he gave out to every member who was there. Basically strikes me as, a letter to cover your backside, because what he unleashed, he now cannot recall. It's to try to respond to the incredible criticism. It's an incredible letter, the way it's written, and one wouldn't believe you would be talking about issues like that.
I've read it. It does not... it's not the kind of letter I thought a president of the United States would send to, the president of Turkey. It does not read as at one point I think it sort of ends with, don't be a tough guy, don't be a fool, I'll call you later.
Yeah, that's how it ends, and it just is just to me it was to be able to First of all, the letter is just an incredible letter, the way it's dictated, but it sounds like it's definitely dictated directly from him, the way he thinks and speaks. And secondly, it was to try to cover himself for what was unleashed with the Turks going ahead and invading into northern Syria and the consequences that flow thereafter.
I want to ask you about something else which sounds incredible. We're told by a Democratic source familiar with the meeting that Senator Schumer read a quote from former Defense Secretary James Mattis, who said, quote, "In this case, if we don't keep the pressure on, then ISIS will resurge. It's absolutely a given that they will come back." And that the president replied, according to this source, by calling Mattis, quote, "the world's most overrated general," end quote, and continued, "You know why? He wasn't tough enough. I captured ISIS. Mattis said it would take 2 years. I captured them in 1 month." Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and he further called General Mattis weak. All of what you said is exactly as it transpired.
What do you make of that?
This is why I tweeted, after spending an hour with the president, I'm concerned for the nation and for our fight against ISIS. I think the president is out of touch with reality. I think he has no concept of what he has unleashed, and I don't think he understands the consequences. He suggested, well, they're 7,000 miles away. Why should we fight there? And another colleague reminded him that on September 11th, they traveled over 7,000 miles and, had one of the worst, tragedies in our country's history in an act of terrorism. I don't think he understands at all what is at stake here, and that's why it worries me. I had never seen this in all of the years that I've served in a national security post on the Senate and House Foreign Relations Committee, and I think he has no grasp of it. I think he has no grasp of what he's unleashed in the region beyond Syria. I don't think he understands how he's empowered Iran, a country that he's supposedly battling on their nuclear program. He has empowered Iran. He has empowered Turkey, who has not been a good NATO ally in this regard, and is creating a whole other series of issues. And he's given Russia a major role in the Middle East that it never had, always aspired to have. And now many countries in the region are recalibrating and thinking about, who do I align myself and what do I do?
I guess just finally, what is your sense of what is going on with the president? You said he has lost touch. He's obviously angered his own party with what he's done in Syria. He is making egregious, false, uninformed comments. He's also obviously under pressure from impeachment. Is he able to handle this pressure?
Well, what I saw is not the cool, calm hand of someone who holds the nuclear code to the country. I did not see a person in control, and the belligerence, the demeanor, the lack of temperament is not what I'd want to see in the President of the United States, whether they be a Democrat or Republican.
Senator Menendez, I appreciate your time. Thank you.